You can see my screen, guys?
Yes, I can. You can stop it. We can see it.
Thank
Yes,
you.
okay.
Anshul, it may go 5 minutes here and there.
No
Because I
problem.
tried to self-record myself, it was just exactly 40 to 43 minutes, something of that sort.
No problem. I think good evening, everyone. I saw that meeting is yet now open just now. So welcome, Maraba, welcome. And we are really glad to have you back after Ramadan period. And as a host and moderator for PMI UAE Chapter, everyone, I welcome you all in our, again, webinar series, which is, of course, is one of the highlights of the chapter, which we have been carrying out as a legacy. And of course, this is the first webinar after the Ramadan. So it would be a new experience for the people who've taken a break. And then I hope everybody is doing well and staying safe with the family so far everywhere where they belong to. Of course, I see that there's a number of people joining us. So just give a couple of more minutes for the people to come in. But I can see you can start messaging and then start networking in the chats, guests. And I also want to introduce the whole chapter, of course. And today I have somebody uh, who has not joined us in the previous webinars. Of course, not only our speaker guest, Mr. Shailendra, but also we have Nida, who is our director of events, and then of course Mr. Nikki, who has been handling the duties of marketing department, is also joined with us at the back end with Joyce and Amir, who has been helping me out in carrying out these operations. So I welcome and I also wish you all the safe so far where you are. And then I'm seeing that people are joining us from Alain, Abu Dhabi, uh, and Sharjah as well. I see it somewhere written. But yeah, feel free to tell where you belong to, and I hope things are going well wherever you are and staying safe. Russell Kema, okay, great guys. So that's being said, I'm seeing that we crossed 100, so I think that's really good. So within 2-3 minutes we crossed 100 numbers, so that's a good news. Lebanon, great. I think people are joining from all over. So good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever the time zone you're joining us from. And we are very soon to going to start our webinar, and it's our absolute pleasure to delight and to connect with the global community of experienced project professionals. My name is Anchal again, and I'm your host and moderator tonight for this session. Behind the scenes, of course, I told you I am joined with Amir, Joyce, Nida, and Nikki. And today's topic, what we are going to explore is project success and how do we redefine it. And we are going beyond the scope of iron triangle, which is scope, time, and cost. And that's the particular point that we want to drive into the sessions, into the role of standards as the essential bridge that is going to translate our high level environment commitments into the right, measurable, actionable, and transparent outcomes simultaneously. This webinar is definitely unique from the perspective of outcomes, because we are going to see and try to understand with Mr. Shailendra that how the limitations of traditional success measure KPIs is going to change from the modern framework perspective. How do we bring the strategic value component? How we are going to see the emerging trends like benefit realization, which is the part of PGMPs predominantly, and how we drive the project decision making simultaneously with the success. Also, we are going to see that how do we position ourselves, if you are acting as a project manager, towards the strategic value as a leader in their respective particular organizations. So I think these are very valuable areas where everybody struggles sometime or later, because we sometimes only think about output versus outcome and how do we bridge this gap predominantly. So before we jump into our core area, some housekeeping notes for everybody. This webinar is going to last somewhere around roughly around 60 to 70 minutes somewhere. But we are going to start with a brief introduction to the chapter. I will share my screen and will take you through some of the slides about the chapter introduction. And then, of course, after that, we will also have a Q&A panel where we are going to answer your questions and your particular queries about the session into the end of the session. Of course, you can keep them up, stacking up into the Q&A part of the section in the Zoom. Feel free to share your reflections of the chat, and then what are the ideas you share with the rest of the community. And then, of course, every participation is going to bring you out two PDUs as well, without saying that, right? So, with that, let me begin with a snapshot of our chapter and the volunteers who are really drive this particular chapter forward. So, allow me to share my screen with that, and then I will start the introduction part. Okay. Good. So I think the chapter is a part of the bigger community. We know it from PMI, and which has been founded in 1969, in fact, which is the group of project managers. And even after half of the century has gone around it, so PMI is still going strong from the perspective of all the resources around project management as a fraternity. One of the largest professional association, which we are proud of. And then, of course, we also have been the publisher of the recognized standards and credentials so far. The chapter, particular specifically, is looking with the vision statement of empower and influence individuals with the innovative project economy principles to turn their ideas into the reality. And to go with that, mission statement looks like to disrupt and create value driven opportunities to all the chapter members and the partners, and to become agile, innovative, productive in the platform for the growth of project economy there. Chapter glimpses are in front of you. I've been the part of the chapter since past 2.5 years, something like that. But of course, this chapter is 100% run by volunteers, and it has now crossed the real benchmark of 4,000 plus members who are really active, and it's been ranked as the top five chapters in the region itself. We are the part of the community as a part of project professionals, and most of the people are holding the certifications, and we seek the capabilities and offerings so that the profession can get much more richer, and also much more enthusiastic people can come towards sharing their ideas and thoughts together. We depend on all of you to make the chapter activities as invigorating as possible so that we can really draw the value, just not by sharing knowledge but also with the networking aspect from the same. The latest board of directors are here in front of you. Of course, we are led by our new elected president, Ms. Amina, and then rest of the directors also shoulder her at the moment together with the duties from respective particular areas. Members also enjoy some certain benefits from the aspect of networking opportunities within the fraternity in terms of different communities we have created sector specifically, learning and knowledge sharing sessions, career growth path, and then of course the event. So this particular webinar is the part of event pillar, where we are definitely trying to bring as much diversification of the topics in the knowledge sharing aspect to the whole community and fraternity. uh, Members corner and spotlight are another avenues where you can get yourself particularly recognized by sharing your thoughts, by giving your ideas, by sharing your articles, whatever you like to go with it. And of course you are feel free to being a part of chapter member. Share your thoughts to the newsletters at pmiua.org. So with that, you have opportunities to, of course, revisit this webinars in the YouTube channel, which is getting recorded, of course, and of course, you have a lot of different social media handles and then respective email so that you can reach out for the particular areas for the support. We have the WhatsApp communities also. So if you want to get added to the WhatsApp particular groups, so please reach out to the admin members and we will route your queries to the right particular person over there inside. So with that, let me introduce Mr. Shailendra now. I think he has been waiting eagerly for us to take us, but let me give you a brief glimpse of who is he, where he comes from. He has been into that particular balance where academy and industry knowledge comes together, and he brings a multidisciplinary perspective to the project and program leadership. And his journey includes leadership roles in multinational organizations like Orange, HCL, Tata, and HP as well, where he has been managing complex multi-million dollar programs with infrastructure of IT, telecommunication, government, oil and gas, and digital platforms. At the moment, he is the part of De Montfort University and has been actively involved in program governance, improving the academic process, and integrating the industry living practices into the curriculum of students and program management. And he's focusing more importantly on enhancing the student learning experiences, improving the efficiencies of operations there, and also aligning the academic initiatives with the institutional strategy there. He has been drawing strong consulting and project delivery background, and also he's particularly passionate with bridging the gap between academia and the industry knowledge, fostering innovation through collaboration. Without saying further ado and then keeping him a bit waiting around that, I would hand over the stage to Shailendra. I think we are eager to hear you out, and then stage is yours.
Thank you, Anshul. Thank you so much. Uh, I hope my screen is visible.
Yep, we can see Montfort University. Yep, go ahead. We can see the title slide.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And I agree that the intent here is to, to provide some nuanced concepts which are being, being used or being practiced because of the changing landscape. In the interest of time, I'll just start with my presentation. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Today, I want to explore one of the most accepted definitions in project management. For decades, we have defined success using three things: scope, time, and cost, famously known as triple constraints in project management. But in 2026 and beyond, we need to ask, is that definition still enough? Because if it is not, then everything we measure, manage, and reward needs to change. Let me start with a simple question. Think about your most recent successful project. It was likely on time, within budget, and met scope. But here's the real question: did it actually create value? Did it improve performance? Did it change outcomes? Or did it simply just got delivered? If you are comfortable, could you please just type in the chat yes or no? Did it create real value? Anshul, you need to monitor the chat, please.
Sure.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
it did.
No,
No, we saw no and no as well. Not
no
very
as well.
surprising. Yeah, with
Interesting.
issues. With issues. Okay. No new value.
No new value. Yes, no,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
no.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Thank you. Thank you for your responses. That's really, really interesting. I can see a mix of responses. Some say yes, partially yes, no, nothing new as terms of value. And this is what we will try to understand: why some projects create value and why some projects do not. Now, to explore that question properly, let me briefly walk you through how we will approach this session. First, we will explore the traditional definition of success. Then we will rethink what failure actually means using type 1 and type 2 errors. From there, we will shift from delivery to value, and I will share a couple of practical frameworks. And finally, real world cases where success looks very different. We have become very good at delivering projects, no doubt, but not necessarily at creating impact and value. Teams deliver on time, within budget, and still fail to move the business forward. Why? Because delivery is measured, but value is often assumed. And this gap is the real problem. To understand why the iron triangle is now limited today in the present context, we need to understand where it came from. As highlighted in this slide, the triple constraint emerged in the 1960s, primarily within engineering and construction environments. Back then, back then those projects were predictable, linear, and well defined. In such context, it made perfect sense to measure success using scope, time, and cost because these were tangible, measurable, and controllable. And that's why the model became so widely adopted. It was simple and practical. But the key question is, are today's projects still that predictable? The limitation of iron triangle lies in its underlying assumption. that project, if we deliver scope on time and within budget, the project is successful. But research and real world evidence clearly challenge this assumption. Projects can meet all three constraints and still fail stakeholders or miss strategic objectives or deliver no meaningful value. The model focuses on outputs but ignore outcomes. And this is where the fundamental gap exists. The academic critique of the iron triangle is now very clear. Success cannot be reduced to constrained compliance. Instead, success must be understood as multidimensional. As highlighted in the slide, stakeholder satisfaction, strategic alignment, long-term sustainability, these are not secondary factors anymore. They are central to defining success. So what we are seeing is a clear shift from measuring efficiency to measuring value. The iron triangle has been foundational to project management. It provides structure and control. However, it answers only one question. Did we execute the plan efficiently? It does not answer, was the plan itself valuable? If you see, this slide introduces a very powerful concept from decision theory, type 1 and type 2 errors. Type 1 errors are those what we usually focus on. For example, doing something wrong, poor planning, execution failures, budget overruns. But type 2 errors are more subtle and more dangerous. They occur when we measure the wrong things or we miss something important. In project management, this means using incomplete success criteria, ignoring value, and focusing only on delivery. So here is the critical insight. Most projects are not failing because we did things wrong. They are failing because we are measuring the wrong things. We have spent decades fixing execution problems, which is type 1 errors. But the real risk today is type 2 errors, measuring success incorrectly. To understand type 2 errors more deeply, let me share a fascinating example. When scientists were studying smallpox, they initially tried to identify what infected individuals had in common. They were looking for a positive cause, but the breakthrough came from a completely different perspective. They noticed that dairy maids who were exposed to cowpox did not contract smallpox. So the key insight came not from what was present, but from what was missing. This led to the development of smallpox vaccine. Now, why is this important for us? Because in project management, we often focus on what we are measuring, scope, time, and cost. But we rarely ask, what might we be missing? And that missing element is often value. So let me ask you, what might we be missing in how we define success? If you could please write in the chat. Let me repeat the question. What might we be missing in how we define success? If you could mention your comments in the chat. Benefits, value, outcomes, ROI, value addition by project, outcomes, overall strategic value. Very true. Interesting. I can see a range of responses. But you see, something important, none of these are part of traditional success criteria. None of these are part of traditional success criteria, and that's where the gap comes. Thank you for your responses. One of the most provocative critiques of the Iron Triangle comes from Atkinson's work. He describes time and cost as two best guesses because they are estimated at a stage where we know the least about the project. And quality, he calls it a phenomenon because it is subjective, evolving, dependent on stakeholder perception. So think about this. We are measuring project success using two uncertain estimates, and one subjective construct. And then we wonder why projects are labeled as failures. This raises a very important question. Are projects failing or are our measurement criteria flawed? We have spent decades fixing type 1 errors, execution problems. But the real risk today is type 2, which is measuring the wrong success. With that, to address these limitations, this slide proposes an expanded model called the square root model on the right-hand side of the slide. Instead of relying only on the iron triangle, success is viewed across four dimensions. First is efficiency, which is scope, time, cost. Second is system performance. Does the solution actually work well? Third is organizational benefits. Does it improve business outcomes? And fourth is stakeholder value. Does it create impact for users, society, and the broader ecosystem? This model fundamentally shifts how we think about success. It tells us the iron triangle is not wrong, it is simply incomplete. Research is not rejecting the iron triangle, rather, it is expanding it. And that's what exactly we must do in practice. This figure provides a useful academic perspective on how the iron triangle has been examined and extended in research. Traditionally, the triangle focused on scope, time, and cost. However, as highlighted in the slide, this model has increasingly challenged. Researchers argue that these three constraints, while useful, are insufficient to fully evaluate project success, especially in complex environments. What begins to emerge is the inclusion of additional dimensions and, importantly, intangible elements. These intangible elements, such as stakeholder perception and value, are often the most critical, yet the least measured. So, even in academic discourse, we see a clear shift from a narrow focus on constraints to a broader understanding of success. And this aligns directly with the argument that we are building today. The context in which we operate has fundamentally changed. Projects are no longer isolated initiatives. They are part of complex, adaptive systems. In such environments, requirements evolve, stakeholder expectations shift, and value emerges over time. A static model like the iron triangle cannot fully capture success anymore. The research is not rejecting the iron triangle, it is expanding it. The critical shift we must make is from delivery to value. Delivering outputs, systems, products, features does not guarantee outcomes, and outcomes are what ultimately drive value. If we stop measuring a delivery, we are stopping too early. Outputs are delivered, outcomes are earned, and value must be managed. Value must be understood beyond deliverables. It is about what improves, what changes, what is sustained, and importantly, value must align with organizational strategy. Otherwise, it is activity without purpose. This framework ensures alignment. Every project must clearly connect to a strategic objective, related projects with defined benefits, and measurable value. If this chain is unclear, the project risks becoming disconnected from business impact. As you can see, the very famous Sydney Opera House. Let me ask you, what do you think of this project? Is it success or failure? Could you please type in the chat one word, success or failure? I can see success, 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 success. Mr. Balaji, failure. Jitendra, success. Mixed responses. failure, success. Interesting. Many of you said success and some said failure. And that difference in the inputs is exactly the problem with how we define success. Thank you for your responses. Let's test our current definition of success. The Sydney Opera House was planned for 4 years, but it took 14, had massive cost overruns, around 15 times the original budget. So, by the Iron Triangle, this is a failure. But today, it is one of the most iconic buildings in the world. It generates significant economic and cultural value. It is globally recognized. Let's take another example, Microsoft Windows. The early versions took time to stabilize, required significant investment, faced technical and market challenges. By strict delivery metrics, early iterations might not look successful. But today, Windows dominates the global operating system market. It has created enormous economic value. It underpins entire ecosystems. So again, was this a failed project initially or a long-term success? Let's have a quick poll. How many of you would call this as a failure? Can you please just type F in the chat? Apple Lisa. What do you think? Let me repeat my question. What do you think of this project? Success or failure? F, failure. Okay. Failure, failure, F. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Success. Someone said success. Okay. Success, Mr. Kareem. Okay. So let me thank you for your responses. Thank you. Now let's look at something more nuanced, Apple's Lisa. This project was extremely expensive, failed commercially, had very limited adoption. So clearly a failure, but it introduced key innovations like graphical user interface, concepts that later shaped the Macintosh. So the question becomes, can a project fail in short term but succeed in shaping long-term value? If we apply the Iron Triangle to these examples, time failed, cost failed, scope was challenged, and yet they created enormous value. So the real question is, are these projects failures or is our definition of success was incomplete? And this is where the shift becomes necessary. This is one of the most important distinctions in project management research. As illustrated in this figure, there's a clear difference between project management success and project success. Project management success focuses on efficiency, like did we deliver on time? Did we stay within budget? But project success goes further. Did we satisfy our customers? Did we achieve organizational goals? Did we create value for end users? And this is where there's a gap. They measure success at the first level, but ignore the second. The key insight here is efficiency and value are not the same and the both must be considered, but value must lead. If you see this flow, most project teams operate at the output level, but organizations derive benefit at the outcome and value levels. This means success must be tracked beyond delivery into real world impact. Most teams stop at output, but value lives at outcome. If value is a goal, then we must rethink not only success metrics, but also roles, responsibilities, and frameworks. And this brings us to the next critical shift, the role of the project manager. The role of the project manager is evolving. You are no longer just responsible for delivering outputs. You are responsible for ensuring that those outputs translate into outcomes. This requires a shift from operational execution to strategic influence. To operate effectively as value leaders, project professionals must develop broader capabilities. Understanding strategy, influencing stakeholders, and thinking systematically are no longer optional. Rather, they are essential. This figure is particularly powerful because it shows how the definition of success has evolved over time. In the early days, success was defined purely by the iron triangle: scope, time, and cost. As projects became more complex, additional dimensions emerged, like customer satisfaction and stakeholder benefits. In today's context, success is increasingly defined by strategic impact, organizational value, and long term outcomes. So, this evolution is not theoretical, it reflects real changes in how projects operate. And the key message is this: if our definition of success has evolved, then our measurement and leadership approach must must evolve as well. Benefits realization introduces discipline into value creation. It ensures that value is defined early, managed actively, and measured continuously. Without this, value remains uncertain. Value does not happen by accident. It must be managed and designed. With that comes governance. Governance must evolve as well, from tracking progress to evaluating value. This includes making difficult decisions to stop or pivot initiatives or projects that no longer deliver expected value. We call it killing the projects or kill gates. In many organizations, benefit realization fails due to lack of clarity, ownership, and measurement. Success is often declared at project closure, long before value is even realized. This figure captures a very important insight about how value evolves over time. At the point of project completion, the focus is typically on efficiency. Was it delivered quickly? Was it within budget? But as time progresses, the importance shifts. Impact on stakeholders, achievement of business goals, preparation for the future becomes more important. In other words, efficiency dominates early, but value dominates over time. And this reinforces a critical point. If we measure success only at the point of delivery, we are measuring success at the wrong time. True success can only be assessed when value has had time to materialize. Let me walk you through a scenario that is extremely common across organizations. A company undertakes a digital CRM transformation initiative. From a project delivery standpoint, everything appears successful. The project is delivered on time, it remains within budget, all features are implemented, the system performance the system performs as expected. So if we apply traditional success criteria, this project is a clear success. However, when we assess the situation 6 months later, a different picture emerges. Sales team are not actively using the system. Conversion rates have not improved. Customer engagement metrics remain unchanged, and the expected return on investment has not materialized. So we must ask a critical question: was this project truly successful? This is a classic example of what I call delivery success but value failure. And this gap is exactly why we need to rethink how we define success. May I ask how many of you have seen something like this? If you could please just type yes in the chat. Yes, yes, I have seen. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your responses. I can see many of you are saying yes, and that's not surprising. This is not an exception. This is actually very, very common. To understand this, to understand this failure, we need to look beyond execution and examine the underlying causes. First, there was no clear definition of benefits. The project focused on delivering a system rather than achieving measurable business outcomes. Second, there was a weak alignment with strategic objectives. The project existed, but its contribution to business goals was not clearly defined or tracked. Third, adoption was assumed rather than managed. No structured effort was made to ensure that users would actually integrate the system into their daily workflows. And finally, there was no ownership of outcomes. Once the project was delivered, responsibility effectively ended. No one was accountable for ensuring that the system actually delivered value. This highlights a key insight. Projects rarely fail in execution, they fail in value realization. Now, let's reframe the same project using a value alignment approach. Instead of starting with the project, we begin with strategy. The real goal was not to implement a CRM system, it was to increase sales conversion by 15%. The CRM system, the CRM system is simply an enabler. By establishing this alignment, we clearly define what success looks like. We identify measurable benefits, and we create a direct link between the project and business value. This approach fundamentally changes how we manage projects. We move from asking, did we deliver the system, to asking, did we improve conversion rates? This is the essence of shifting from project thinking to value thinking. If we apply benefits realization discipline, the approach becomes much more robust. Before delivery, success must be clearly defined in measurable terms. For example, what level of conversion improvement are we targeting? We must also assign clear ownership. In this case, the head of sales, not just the project manager, should be accountable for realizing benefits. During delivery, stakeholder engagement becomes critical. Users must be prepared, trained, and supported to adopt the system. After delivery, the work does not end, it evolves. We must track adoption, measure outcomes, and continuously optimize. This is where most organizations fall short. They stop managing at delivery, but value is realized after delivery, not at delivery. And this is the fundamental shift we need to embed in our thinking. Now, let me show you the same type of initiative, but approached differently. In this case, the organization still implemented a CRM system, but instead of starting with the question, what system should we build, they started with what business outcomes are we trying to achieve? The goal was clearly defined: increase sales conversion rates. The project was positioned as an enabler, not the objective. From the beginning, value was defined, stakeholders were engaged, and adoption was treated as critical to success. This small shift in thinking made a significant difference. What differentiated this case was execution discipline aligned to value. Before delivery, success metrics were clearly defined. Ownership of benefits was assigned to business leaders, not just the project team. During delivery, users were continuously engaged. Feedback loops ensured the system met real needs. Change management was integrated, not treated as an afterthought. And after delivery, adoption was actively tracked, conversion rates were measured, adjustments were made based on real performance data. This ensured that the project did not stop at delivery. It continued until value was realized. The result in this case was significantly different. Sales conversion increased by 18%, user adoption exceeded 85%, customer response times improved, and ROI was achieved within 6 months. So, what made the difference? Not tech, not budget, not timelines. The difference was focus. In the first case, success was defined as delivery. In the second case, success was defined as value. And that changed how the project was designed, how it was executed, and how it was measured. This is the shift we need to embed in modern project management. Both projects delivered the same type of system, but only one delivered value. And that difference came down to mindset, alignment, and discipline. May I ask if you could please share your response in your current projects? Are you closer to the first case or the second? Let me repeat my question. May I ask if you could please share your responses in your current project? Are you closer to the first case or the second? Interesting. First, second, in between. Well, that happens. Thank you. Thank you. So there are two types of project completion. One is delivery focused and other is value driven. While delivery focuses on time and within budget, value driven project delivery is focused on outcomes and outcomes are defined upfront. Let me ask you something. Masdar city here in UAE, would you call it successful? Could you please just type in the chat yes or no? Yes for successful and no for unsuccessful. Yes, 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 why? Yes, no idea. Okay, no, no, yes, do not know. Yes, no, yes, no. Thank you. So now here is what is interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. This project was designed as a model for sustainable urban development. Now, from a traditional perspective, it experienced delays, it faced cost overruns. So, if we apply the iron triangle strictly, this project might be considered unsuccessful. However, when we evaluate it through a value lens, it pioneered renewable energy integration. It became a global reference point for sustainability. It created long term environmental and societal impact. So the question becomes, should we call this project a failure because it missed timelines, or a success because it created long term value? This example clearly shows that time and cost measure efficiency, but value measures impact. Now, let's look at a business driven example, Spotify. Spotify faced a challenge. How do we deliver highly personalized music recommendations at scale? To solve this, they invested in overhauling their data infrastructure. This was not a simple project. It involved technical complexity, it required significant investment, and it faced early challenges. But critically, it was aligned with their long term strategy. The result: improved user engagement, higher customer retention, and ultimately significant revenue growth. So again, success was not defined by did we deliver on time? It was defined by did we create business impact? And this is the shift we must make. Finally, let's look at a powerful example of failure, not of execution, but of mindset. Nokia, once a dominant player in mobile phones, attempted to shift towards software and services. However, initially, the organization remained focused on traditional metrics like efficiency, cost, cost control, and timelines. Despite clear signals that the market was evolving, the company failed to align with strategic value. The result: loss of competitive advantage, inability to compete in the smartphone era, and eventual decline. This example is critical because it shows you can execute efficiently and still fail strategically. And this is exactly why the iron triangle is no longer enough. It needs to be evolved. The key takeaway is simple. We must move beyond managing constraints to managing value. Think about the projects you are currently working on. Ask yourself, are they truly creating value or are they simply delivering outputs? Are you measuring success at the point of completion or at the point of impact? Because the answer to that question defines not just your projects, but your effectiveness as a leader. And this is not a technical shift, as I said, it's a mindset shift. Organizations do not invest in projects, they invest in outcomes. And it is our responsibility to ensure those outcomes are realized. If there is one message I want you to take away, it is this: stop delivering projects, start delivering value. Because again, organizations do not invest in projects. So let me leave you with a question. Are your projects creating value or they are just delivering outputs? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shailendra. I think you have left a lot of thinking at the mind of the people at the moment. So I expect that that thinking, tickling thing will come out in the form of some kind of questions and queries, possibly here, which we'll definitely try to answer now. Uh, but yeah, let's give some time to soak this particular message. It's a deep message, what you mentioned about, and it
True.
takes some time to realize this. That, as you said clearly, that stop delivering projects and getting towards delivery outcome side of the thing. So uh, one thing that we should of course look at is the way that how do we really deliver value. As you said, delivery measurement is one of the key areas around understanding what the delivery is really, the recipe of delivery, value delivery is about. So we deliver value when we every project is going to demonstrate advance strategic objectives alignment, as you said, correct, optimizing the resource economics about output levels of measuring, and also producing the verifiable benefits that can exceed the cost of the change the project has carried out with itself. So I think with that, we definitely want people to think a deeper way, and we are happy to answer the questions from the angle of audience now, guys. So I see one question at the moment uh, at the Q&A section. I expect that if you want to ask more, please feel free to shoot these questions to the Q&A section. Meanwhile, Joe has asked us, Shailendra, that of course the question is that again towards the project manager. So is it not
Mhm.
a responsibility of project manager to ensure that the ultimate success is aligned to the agreed scope, budget, and time?
Mm, absolutely. I mean, that's a valid point. But you see, as a project manager, you are so involved with the constraints of scope, time, and cost that you lose that focus towards strategic benefits. Also, if you recall from the point of view of life cycle of project management, you have initiation phase, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closure. And in real life, project managers get only involved towards the end of planning and towards the start of execution. So mostly project managers are not at all involved in the initiation phase. They have no, and that is done by the senior leadership team. So they, in particular, have no idea with which intent, with what strategic benefits the leadership team has launched these projects. And sometimes this information is archived because of the market competitiveness and stuff. But that's where the gap comes. So as a project manager, you are delivering the project, but you have that gap, why and how it is aligned with the strategic benefits. So again, I would say that as a project manager, please try to understand the complete picture. So what if in case somehow that project does not deliver the strategic benefits, you have a complete clarity why and how it should not translate the strategic benefits, because you are not part of that and you do not have that visibility. So you need to have a complete understanding, complete picture, and you must ask this question from stakeholders: what if I deliver the project on scope, time, and cost, but it does not translate to strategic benefits? And that's what intrigues the stakeholders. That's what intrigues the leadership team, and that's when you get those missing chips. And if you see in
Okay.
my example, I mentioned the CRM implementation. It is not only the responsibility of project manager, it is also the responsibility of sales head, because implementation, adoption of the system, as a project manager, you can implement, but adoption has to come from the system, from the organization. So again, I would say that as a project manager, try to understand the complete picture so that you know what is missing and you can add value there.
Thank you.
I hope
I
I
think
answered your question. Yeah.
there is a valid point, what you're saying. I totally echo that. Of course, Omar has resonated something that this is the key part of the program and portfolio management leg of the what we know as a fraternity about project management institute as well, where the benefit management and strategic alignment is the one important radar which these two particular roles have been created around, and the industry has been working with that particular roles from that angle. One question I can see, Shailendra, is that I think somebody asked, I think people are posting it into the chat, so it's just revolving it fast. But I expect the people can, if you can type it in the Q&A, it will be easy for us to manage. But how do you really going to measure the value of a project when the value is intangible, or value will not come in the medium and short term? It will be a long term value game. How you're going to
Mhm.
decide and measure this value? Any thoughts?
I think that's one of the most important challenges. I'm completely in agreement that it's not easy, but I would also like to emphasize that it is very, very important, and hence it's a very important challenge. Not all value is immediately, not all values you can be tracked in a way of finance, but it can still be measured through proxies. For example, customer experience, customer
Yeah.
satisfaction, customer retention, adoption, usage metrics, strategic positioning, market share, or capability maturity. So these are proxy things through which you can measure these things. And I'm against repeating that it is not easy, it is difficult, it is a challenge. But as a project manager and going towards senior leadership roles, this is what you should look out for. And the key is define what success looks like before the project starts. Always ask your senior leadership team, how do you define success? How do you define success, and what success looks like to you? And then they will give you five, three, points. And please
Mm.
ensure that your project delivery translates to those what success looks like answers, and then track it consistently. So the perfect measurement is not the goal. Intentional measurement is what I would say.
Perfect. No, that really well said, Shalin. I think what you just said, and I think one of the inputs what I can add up to that to just compliment you. But before I add up, I see another question. Thank you for posting it in the Q&A. Loga has asked, in your experience, which KPI is good for measuring adoption of 2000 plus users?
Well, I think I do not have a silver bullet to this question, because it purely depends from organization to organization and system to system. But definitely there should be an in-house system to see the adoption. If you're not tracking that, and if that KPI is not one of the KPIs of calling the project success, then definitely there's a miss, there's a gap.
Mm. No, I think that's a very common scenario sometimes. As you said, when people just sometimes especially depending on the scale of the organization and how much project driven organizations they are, and how much maturity level and capability level these people are having in the companies. We see that everybody wants to deliver on projects, and more and more projects, more and more outcomes, more and more things are coming out. But when you think on the strategic discussions on the boards and the long term, we see that when they ask, we have been producing so much, but actually why we're not growing, why we are not at the place where we are expecting it to be. These kind of questions comes very very late,
Very
uh,
late. Yeah.
very very late, when people have forgotten about what even some projects have been done, let me
And
tell you,
and
and then there's no
and
measure.
Anshul, yeah, true. And Anshul, adding to that, sometimes I have seen the cases where project manager was held responsible for not
Exactly.
realizing those benefits. So
Yeah.
you understand why I use that example of CRM, that the sales head should also be held accountable. So sometimes you held accountable for the things that you are not aware of. You were nowhere in the picture when those
Yes.
strategic initiatives were planned, and based on that, this project was initiated because you
Yeah.
joined the team at the end of planning, at the start of execution. So,
Yes.
so this is very, very tricky.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said it explicitly, which I was not
Okay.
doing that. So, as a project
Okay.
manager, you should know that this
Yeah.
is not your part of delivery. You cannot be judged for that because you did not plan that. And therefore, as a project manager, it is important when you start a project, please ask how the success looks like. What are
Yeah.
those success criteria so that when you deliver, you should not held responsible for the things that you're not part of.
Yeah. One question, I think I'm seeing it. Moshood has asked that how can value delivery as a KPI indicator for PM success can contribute to an organizational competitive advantage?
Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. How can value delivery as an
Mhm,
indicator of success of a project manager can
mhm.
contribute to an organizational competitive advantage?
So look at this, so ultimately projects are successful when they create value,
Hmm.
and that improves organizational performance. And we do projects because projects take the organization from current to future level in terms of finances, in terms of customer retention, in terms of market penetration. So competitive advantage is very important, and we do projects purely to take our organization from current to future. So when we are initiating the project, and when we are in the initiation phase, you are doing need assessment, you are doing feasibility study based on technical, financial environment, then you are creating a business case, then you are creating a project charter, stakeholder register, and high level assumption and risk register. So this project charter and business case is very important. That's where you define all those values that you expect this project to deliver. And that has to be detailed, that has to be explicit, and that has to be quantified. Because once you are delivering the project which is going to be 2 to 3 years long, sometimes you miss or you dilute that information. So it is very important, you as a project manager and the someone whom you're reporting to, that you constantly refer back to all those benefit realizations that you have tracked in project charter and business case, that you do not, that you are still delivering the project but you are not matching it. So it has to be a direct correlation, and you need to continuously check it back, that after 6 months, after 1 year, are your project delivery still relating back to the benefit realization with the intent with which you started? And if there is a gap, it is advisable, it is wise to stop the project or change the course of correction.
Thank you. Um, from the context perspective, one angle has come, another question now, that when your project is working towards a tangible asset creation, for something like, I'm just giving it aloud, but for example, a machinery,
Mhm.
particular prototype machinery, or the construction building, whatever, when you have to build an asset based project which is tangible, and if you are doing the execution part of it and successful delivery of this physical asset is absolutely key, right? Of course, because people can see and touch and use and make use of and so forth. In that scenario, how should project manager should interpret the delivering value concept? Because without losing, of course, the focus on core delivery obligations such as safety, quality, cost of the program, and handover readiness. All this is a part and parcel of project delivery, right? So the
Yeah,
question is how we are going to interpret delivering value in this tangible format of the outcome.
I think again, I will come down to adoption. Your job is maybe, you are only seeing that piece of the picture where your job is to deliver the machinery. But if you see the complete picture, or if you try to see the complete picture, if you have that visibility, you will understand delivering is fine, but using that machine for results, for outcomes, is the intent with which that machine was delivered. So I think, again, I would say try to reach out to the senior leadership team with and ask them how the success looks like and what is the intent for this project. And sometimes it is fine that you just focus on your work and just get delivered, but sometimes you are held accountable for the things that you are not part of, or the things that you do not have any control. In that case, it makes more sense to have the complete picture so that you can say and you can add value.
Okay. So I think we cannot complete the discussion without this part of the question now. So in the modern situation where everybody's being pushed to to go towards AI and adopting the AI in some other shape and form, how does the value side of the delivery fits in the situation? Because most of the time stakeholders are not clear about the end state vision, because scope is getting very fluid. Value realization is sometimes very very difficult than the typical scenarios, especially when the urgency becomes the kind of more kind of phenomena to adopt AI rather than clearly defining the outcomes. How do you look at that value part of it now with the AI context?
I think when it comes to AI related things, I would say agile would be quite helpful. I'm not stamping that it's a complete solution, but agile improves adaptability and delivery and delivers project parts in incremental value. So in that context, agile way of project management can be very, very beneficial. So agile will support that shift. It will not replace the need for value thinking, but it can definitely, help you in realizing value in today's context, delivering the projects in an agile way. Yeah.
Thank you, Rashalind. I think that closes our Q&A part of it with the time situation here. But I think one of the important key takeaway from this wonderful discussion and the exchange of these ideas and thoughts, I can definitely envision it in a way where, for something like we should have a kind of scorecard of value with us. If you are
Very, very
leading a
important.
project, okay, you need to define, and if you don't have authority to define it, at least become an enabler to define it. You create a kind of value scorecard where you can define the success, practical success scorecard, where your initiative need to come out with the weightage of percentages, with the dimension of strategic alignment, financial value, delivery predictability, or stakeholder satisfaction, governance of the risk, so on and so forth. Whatever comes in the whole linkages part of it, give it a weightage, define the weightage and success scorecard based on it, and then rate your overall delivery from the perspective of the scorecard, because that at least will take you one step further and taking into the further practical dimension of analyzing the value over there. But thank you so much. We see the
Welcome.
questions are coming on and forth. They're not stopping at the moment, but with the sake of the time, I have to skip
I
them
would
now.
suggest everyone that you can you can send your questions to me on LinkedIn. Here is my QR
Yeah,
code for
you have
LinkedIn,
shared
and
the
I would
LinkedIn. Yeah, please.
happy to
Great.
collaborate, connect, and share my vision and views on project management.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I think so generous about you, Shailin, for that. I think definitely I would like to give you a big special thank to you for coming out and then sharing your all these wonderful ideas and discussing all these things with our audience who are here. And of course, more importantly, with the concluding of the sessions today, I want to thank every participant who joined from across wherever they are, and our volunteers who make this
And
webinar really possible.
Until
Special.
I must tell you, few of my colleagues have joined this session from UK, Leicester, from
Wow,
Nigeria. So I
nice.
would just like to thank all of them once again, and to everyone who has joined us.
Likewise, likewise. Special recognition to the teams in membership, outreach, volunteering, finance, and marketing colleagues in the PMI UAE chapter who really ensure that these kind of insights are getting reached to the global community. And we are definitely committed, and we will definitely try to improve in every possible way to bring this all diversity aspect in the form of knowledge sharing to all of you. So, with that, I think thank you so much. Remember, leadership isn't about executing the task, it's all about inspiring people and navigating the complexity and leaving a legacy for an impact. I think the true measure of the success of the we as a professional of the project management isn't in the number of projects we deliver, but the difference you made in the teams, stakeholders, and the communities. So, thank you so much,
Definitely.
Shailendra and the team.
Thank you.
God bless you and stay safe. See you next time in the next webinar.